Welcome to the Kyber Culture, episode 90, with myself, Deepak, and today I am joined by Hayden of the Dive In Movie Cast to chat a little Miss Marvel and rank Phase 4 of the MCU so far. So stick around for a chat. Make sure to follow us on YouTube and TikTok, as well as our other socials like Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, etc. Check the links in the description. It's all there. But yeah, so quick disclaimer before we get into this, because Hayden and I might sound or come off as like some MCU haters going through ranking this phase, but that's not the case at all. Like we both love the MCU. Hayden, you can speak on this, but like Phase 4 has some enjoyable stuff, but I think the phase as a whole isn't the greatest. But what do you think, Hayden?
I said to you the other day when you asked me if I wanted to be on this podcast, and I think we were just discussing our thoughts on Phase 4 in general. I think the easiest way for me to describe it is passionate but exhausted. I feel like, it's definitely important for me to clarify to people that I am not a hater. I watch all this shit the day it comes out, like I'm constantly on top of that. So I like the MCU a lot, and it still means a lot to me, and still something that I enjoy engaging with. But yeah, Phase 4 is definitely weak, and is a mixed bag for me, a very mixed bag, actually. I'm not big on a lot of the phase, to be honest. Not that I think any of it's downright bad, but just I feel like so much of it is more forgettable to me these days, and I just kind of struggle to tap into it the same way I used to. Like I was really, really invested in it, and I feel like now I'm just kind of engaging with it a little bit.
I think one of the things about it too is the length of the phase so far, because IGN put out this graphic. We're actually using a lot of IGN's graphics today, but so shout out to IGN. Okay, so phases 1 through 3, if you do the math, it totals out to about 50 hours, like between 45 and 50 hours of content. Phase 4 right now is 6 movies and 7 shows, and with Miss Marvel, I believe it crossed the 50-hour mark. So Phase 4 is longer than the previous 3 phases combined.
Yeah,
which is
in like a year and a half, they've completely like out-contented the entire MCU. Like it's like they've already made more than they did in the whole original stretch there.
Yeah, so it's like I don't know. Everyone kind of tries to tell you like MCU fatigue isn't real, but I guess maybe to the people that you're talking to, if you talk to like-minded individuals, of course you're going to think that way, but there's a lot of people that are exhausted out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have so many friends who are really still engaged and invested in the MCU. And like to that, I'm like very happy for them. And I wish that I was kind of still on that same wavelength. And last night I was at a wedding, and I'm still a little hungover from said wedding actually currently. But last night I was at a wedding, and we were talking about Phase 4 and just the MCU in general a little bit. And it just kind of got brought up, like, our thoughts on it. And I was talking openly how I'm definitely not a hater. And so it's important for me to not get grouped in with the people who hate on this shit and mock this stuff, because I am not that. I definitely think it's at its weakest point for me in regards to my investment and my engagement with this stuff. But I don't know. You're right. Like, the fact that it's all a content thing. They're trying to make as many hours as they can for Disney Plus. They want you to watch and stream as much stuff on their streaming services as possible. So now it's all just a game to try and get you to watch as much as you can. Whereas previously they were just making a couple movies in a year, and they were often pretty good,
Yeah. That was the thing too, is that like the time between each project was a little longer, and like with that there was a different level of like anticipation because there was so much time,
Yeah.
And now it's like we got Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness in May, and then Miss Marvel started a month later, and then Thor: Love and Thunder came out a month later.
It's always back to back. And I think when COVID was going on and I was stuck at home and all the Disney stuff, the Disney Plus stuff started coming out, my friends and I were like, it is so cool that there is never a time period where we're not watching the MCU right now. Like, it's awesome that we're always watching something on our TV, and then the show ends, and then we're in the theaters, and then another show starts. I think for a while that was really awesome. And now I'm like really kind of over that feeling of like it never ends. It's like there's always something else to watch.
it feels like work now.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely like it's like a bit of a job at this point. Like just watching the MCU and staying engaged with all of it, I'm like, I got like 8 plot threads that I need to remember because those are going to come back in 4 years, and I need to like. It's so tedious at this point, but not in a way where it's like bad. I just think in a way where it's kind of testing my patience for the first time, you know?
Yeah. Like I was trying to think about this too, is like, well, maybe we're getting all of this content so fast and not spread that far apart just because, like, do you think they held on to some of this because of COVID and now that's why it feels like they're so clumped up together, is because they couldn't release it at first? Or because even so, phase 4 is,
I do think
is still long, like regardless if like they were held on to for a bit.
I do think they ran into a little bit of an issue where, like, I know they had to kind of remap the phase as it was, right? Like they were doing Doctor Strange was supposed to come before Spider-Man or something like that. So I know that like the phase kind of had to be played around with during COVID due to like production schedules and just like the information you're getting at the time you're getting it. So they really had to move around all that stuff. Like there was a reason Black Widow needed to come out when it did, and that was because it set up Yelena and they needed to release Hawkeye. So it's all just this big domino effect where it's like a lot of it was probably backed up, but then they kind of had to move stuff around and like last minute change things. So that might be the reason that some of it feels a little bit messier to me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think you're right. I do think, yeah, it was a lot. Some of it was backed up and there was just so much stuff that they had and they needed to like have it all mapped out and prepared for a certain release order.
Oh yeah. So actually I want to run this by you because this is a rumor that I found to be interesting, supposedly debunked by now. It's kind of exciting. I think it would really like reignite my like, oh wow, I can't believe they got this guy. There's a rumor going around that they're going to get Steven Spielberg to direct Fantastic Four.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah. So
I think that'd be so cool to see. I mean, at this point, it's like Steven Spielberg's always going to keep making great movies, but to see him get behind like a movie like Fantastic Four would be really, really wicked.
I think that would be really interesting because that would feel like if they get Spielberg, like there's no way that the studio can put their claws on it, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like, leave him alone. Let him cook.
Yeah. So
one thing I wanted to ask you about Phase 4 is just like, in regards to the quality, do you notice that it's like, do you feel it's lesser? Like, do you feel like it shows that they're putting less work and they're kind of like throwing these things together a little bit more? Or do you feel like it's still as good as it's always been? Because for me, a big issue that I'm taking up with the MCU recently is like a lot of it looks really bad. Like some of the CGI in some of the stuff. And I'm not trying to sound like this jaded, like, oh, it's not up to the standards. But I think it's so weird that movies from like 10 years ago in the MCU actually look better than stuff that's coming out right now. And I'm like, that's not good and really weird to me. So I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
I'll say this. Avengers 1 and honestly all the Iron Man movies before it. I think like in the first few phases, Iron Man's armor progressively got worse. If you look at his like suit in Avengers 1, it looks like it looks real. And then once he gets this like that CGI like I understand it's supposed to be like skin or whatever, or that's how they like try to portray it. His suits just started to look all bad. And then, you know, you can read articles like very recently actually that like VFX artists have been pretty vocal about saying that Marvel and the MCU is like a terrible client and they push like unrealistic guidelines on them. I think that just goes back to the point that we were talking about earlier. It's they're trying to do too much in a short amount of time. And if they just had more time to really refine what they're working on, it can look better. You know? Yeah.
I completely agree. I think you can kind of watch it crumble a little bit as time goes on, the stuff that they're doing, and in particular with this phase, because it's such a short turnaround time for the next project. I feel like it's really showing. And I was reading recently about those articles about like the VFX companies kind of calling out Marvel and saying that they're awful to work for. And I think that those kind of complaints, and you can feel that it kind of shows in the work that's coming out recently.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm still completely interested in all of it, you know, like not as much as before, but like I'm gonna still keep up with it. I think the things for me that I'm just looking forward to now is, you know, Fantastic Four. Whether Spielberg directs it or not, I still want to see the Fantastic Four.
Oh yeah.
And the X-Men or mutants. Let me ask you this real quick. What exactly would would reignite your interest in the MCU?
For me, I think I just need Kevin Feige to give me a little bit of a through line. I really do. Like, I know what we're doing right here, and I know what this phase is. It's like we're setting stuff up, we're setting characters up, we're playing the long game, and I get that, but we need to play it a little bit shorter because I need something to hold on to. It's kind of just it's so up in the air what storyline we're going to be following and who's going to be the big bad and what are we even doing. So I just need, for me, what would be a start is just giving me some sort of big, consistent storyline to invest in. But other than that, I really want to see characters like from like the cosmic side of the MCU a little bit more. I really want to see, like you said, the X-Men, Fantastic Four. I would really love to see Silver Surfer and Galactus. Like, it's time to start bringing out some of those cards. So that's what I would really be interested in, is just seeing some of like the iconic stuff that people are kind of really waiting for. And like they're being so tongue-in-cheek about when we're going to get it and how we're going to get it. And I'm like, this is what's holding so many people onto this. So like that's why they're not revealing that or doing too much with it yet, is because they know that so many people will wait for that stuff. And for me, I think, it would just be like some sort of consistent thing. And in a lot of those characters, I'm really interested in seeing.
Couldn't agree more. But damn, I really hope they do something different. I mean, I'm still holding, like you just mentioned, and like I said a little bit ago, I'm still holding on to the Fantastic Four and the mutants. And they've been really teasing us with it, especially with what happened in the Ms. Marvel finale. Sorry, but spoilers. And kind of like with what we got in Multiverse of Madness. Those 2 music cues. You know what I'm talking about.
The 90s X-Men cartoon. I gets me going. That stuff excites me so much.
Yeah. So I think most of all, it's just patience. But right now it's like they're just churning out so much where I'm just like, come on, like let's get it moving. You know what I mean?
Right. And they're setting up so many threads, I think, is where I kind of buckle a little bit too, is like each ending is another cliffhanger that we will wait an unspecified amount of time before seeing anything. Like, we're going to get into just little spoilers, but like we have Valentina, whatever her name is. I can't remember her name, but the one who's Valentina, she's the one. We have her, and then we have the stuff with Thor and Hercules now that they're setting up. And then we have the stuff with Ms. Marvel, and they're setting so much. I could keep going on and on and on.
There's so many different plot lines.
Yeah, and it's so much to juggle and to remember, and especially when you find yourself less invested in one of the plot lines they're setting up, it's a little easy to waver when there's nothing consistent and like big and grand. It's all just these little things doing their own thing.
Well, we'll see how the rest of it goes.
I'm also really excited for stuff like Blade. I think
Phase 5 will be a slapper.
Yeah, there's some really great stuff on the slate for Phase 5. I feel like some of the bigger problems with Marvel right now is like it's really easy to waver. You know, like that's what what I'll say to people is like, I understand how hard it is to stay connected and invested in it right now. Is it dying? Definitely not. I think those criticisms are kind of hilarious because there's some really cool stuff on the horizon for it, but it can be a little tedious at times right now, and that's the one thing that I think some people are struggling with the most.
Like, will it quote unquote die? Like, I'll say this: maybe it'll lose like some fans, but they will always be like a financial success. You know, like when you say it's gonna die, like that's
Doctor Strange just made $1 billion.
Yeah, it's like, come on, like they're gonna be good. They're gonna be good for the foreseeable future.
I wanted to ask you this. I feel like I would love a Silver Surfer movie as pitched by Sean Fennessy in regards to like a Denis Villeneuve doing like this cosmic, serious kind of grim world, right? I think would be really
philosophical
cool.
Type stuff, right? Like meaning of life type shit.
So yeah, super existential. Yeah. I feel like Marvel's scared away from stuff like that now. After Eternals, they're like, we gave you super grim, and not grim, but like serious and brooding. And you guys didn't like it. It was like not a Marvel movie in the traditional sense, but you liked it. I don't have as big of a hate for Eternals as a lot of people do, but do you think that they might be scared away from doing stuff like that, or taking swings like that after Eternals?
I don't think so, because at the end of the day, like on paper, Eternals still did fairly, like, I think they did fairly decent at the box office, right? I don't know. I hope not. I don't know what. I don't know. I hope they don't. I'll just say that to answer your question. I hope they still like try to do something different and take risks like that. We'll see.
I just want them to take swings. That's all that matters. You know, if they miss sometimes, that's fine, but just taking the shot.
Even misses will work out for them. you know?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But okay, so before we rank Phase 4, I want to, like, the show just ended. Miss Marvel just ended. So I want to briefly chat about the show with you. So not going to do like a crazy full breakdown or anything, but what'd you think about the show?
I actually really liked Miss Marvel. I'm a huge fan of like coming of age stuff. I've always just been a sucker for high school stories and coming of age stories, and I really liked the idea of seeing that in the MCU. And Miss Marvel's openly not trying to be something it isn't. It's definitely a show for a younger MCU audience, but I think that doesn't stop it from still being accessible to the people who just like the MCU at large. It's definitely a little more kid friendly, but I think that was to this show a benefit. You know, not in like a corny, cheesy, kid-friendly way, but in like this is a story for high schoolers or teenagers. And I really enjoyed it. I didn't know a whole lot about the Kamala Khan character, aside from the fact that she was the lead character in that horrible Avengers game. So I was like, all right, give me a do-over with her. Let's try this again. And I really thought Iman Vellani is incredible. Just like such a immediate star, and I really thought she was so funny and charismatic. Really liked the show off the bat. What about you?
Yeah, no, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't super crazy about it, but I thought it was good for what it was. It was just bright, fun energy. Like you said, Iman Vellani is fantastic in the role. But I think the bits that worked the most for me were when they explored her family and talked about like partition and all that stuff. I just love a good fictional story in real world events. But yeah, like, I mean, it's just wholesome teenager stuff, some like wholesome, strong, touching, emotional moments with her family and like with her dad and stuff. And I think what also like elevated my enjoyment of the show was just seeing how many like Pakistani, Muslim, South Asian folks reacting so strongly to it, and just because they said it was probably the best on-screen representation of the culture that they've seen. Like, I didn't know anything about partition or stuff like that, you know, and just seeing like a brief snippet of it in episode 5 and parts of episode 4, I found pretty interesting. But as a whole, I wasn't like super big on it, but I thought it was like good for what it was.
Yeah, I mean, with Miss Marvel, I feel like the representation is such a pivotal part of that show. I think it's actually one of the shows in the MCU that like isn't trying to focus so often on the superhero stuff. It's really exploring like her family's history and and her connection to that, and her exploring that. And I think that's one of the show's bigger strengths. Her powers are kind of lame. They don't really look that good, you know. Like I do think when we get into it as a superhero show, it's not that great. But I think as like a family drama, I was really impressed by the execution of Miss Marvel. And I think it actually does lose me when it tries to become this big globe-trotting, like save the world plot in like episodes 4 and 5. I really kind of tapped out there. But I thought the first few episodes, 1, 2, and 3, and then 6 were really, really great.
Episode 6, I thought was like, I didn't hate it, but I was, oh, this is kind of silly. Like when they did the whole like Home Alone thing in the high school, like I thought it was funny. They're like throwing softballs at like the agents suck. Let's just say this: the agents are fucking garbage. They're getting outsmarted by these kids.
They don't do anything right.
Getting hit with softballs and shit. I'm like, damn, you guys are fucking awful.
I said they're not controlling any damage at all.
The worst control of damage ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like, just to go back to your point, I don't think her powers look all that great.
I hope the Marvel's budget improves her powers, and I hope we can see those powers in kind of a cooler, different light with more money behind it, you know, because it does look kind of lame. And I like the cosmic appeal and look to it, but I feel like it just doesn't look that great. And I would like to see it look better next time we see her. Yeah,
like maybe have it like smooth it out, like instead of it looking like this pixely crystal stuff.
It looks like this weird cosmic force field around her. And like, I know her original powers are she's kind of just giant and stretchy, right? Like she's like,
yeah,
very similar to Mr. Fantastic, I think.
Yeah.
Again, very unfamiliar with the Miss Marvel character, but I know they changed it to be like more cosmic. And so it's the bangle that kind of causes that to happen the way it does. But I don't know. It's interesting. I just think that her powers don't look that great. Iman Vellani sells it though. She's so charismatic that I couldn't even tell.
Right. I'm curious if the bangle will have any connection to the 10 rings, because in one of the episodes, are there two bangles?
Right, that's a good question.
Or is it just the one? But in one of the episodes, they're like in this crypt somewhere. It's like where they first find the bangle. And then it's like this overhead shot, and they're like somewhere where the 10 rings was at, like the organization. And I was like, huh, like there's definitely that, like that would be a great crossover, like seeing Shang-Chi and Miss Marvel. And that would be really cool if the 10 rings, like the actual 10 rings, like if Shang-Chi's 10 rings and the bangle do have some type of connection, because we're not really sure where the 10 rings came from either. But let's talk about this final, like the final stingers. So how did you feel about the mutation bit?
Honestly, maybe got a little too excited over that. I think that might have been the first moment with any of the Disney Plus shows where I watched Miss Marvel alone. It was like one of the only Marvel shows that my roommate hasn't watched with me. And so I was alone in the living room at like 1 a.m. Had a couple drinks, and they said mutation in that stinger, that music played, the X-Men 90s cartoon music. And I just like I got really excited. I kind of was like, no way, and I just immediately like kind of threw my hands up. I think it's setting up what I wanted from them for a while, which is setting up mutants and setting up the way forward. So
for me, I wasn't like, at first I didn't even catch the like when I first watched the episode, I didn't catch the X-Men animated music cue. And I was just thinking about like, there's something in your DNA. It's like a mutation. I was like, oh, very cool. But I didn't like strongly react to it. Maybe like yourself, but mostly because like, I was like, okay, like Feige announced that mutants were coming, and I think everyone knew that they're already coming. But I guess this is just like the first time that you hear the word mutant on screen for the MCU. But I don't know, it's still very cool. Like that X-Men animated thing, we got it twice this year already, you know?
I know, they're really riding that. They know that gets everyone
excited. Yeah,
excited.
so they know that that's like X-Men, especially tying it to the 90s thing, I think would bring back like our generation, but also like just because we grew up with the animated show, but it would also be very good for like the younger kids because all the X-Men are supposed to be a little younger, right?
To your point about that moment, I will say, I don't think it's actually the moment that did that for me. I think it's like it's thrown in and it's just like, mutation. Play a little music cue and everybody freaks out. I don't think the moment's that impressive or anything. I think it was just more so like my idea of the fact that we're getting there and like
we're finally moving forward with it.
Right, we're doing something. I like I said earlier, like I just feel like we've just been sitting around and haven't really set a way forward. So that to me felt like we might finally be starting to move on those things. And I was like, yeah. But the moment is fine. I don't think it's like a big epic like MCU bursting open moment. I think it's fine, and it's like it's a cool reference of what we know is happening, you know?
Right. So we'll see. I'm really curious what they're gonna do with the fucking X-Men animated show that they're releasing in the future.
Yeah, it's a sequel show to the animated one, right?
Something like that, yeah. Either a sequel or just like continuing where it left off. I don't even know if like, because those shows were just like weekly episodes, like a quick like 20-30 minutes. I don't think they ever had like one singular story. Like it was just like new episodes.
Right.
So I guess I'll check the last episode and see if it like leaves it off anywhere. But yeah, what about the post-credit scene? How'd you feel about it?
Did nothing for me. I wish they maybe explained anything. It felt very last minute. It almost gave me like in a weird comparison. It reminded me of like the Morbius post-credit scene.
Oh my god, no way.
It felt like they dubbed in Kamala's mom's voice. She obviously was not on set to deliver that one line of dialogue. So it felt like they dubbed that in, and then immediately Kamala just like goes into her closet and comes out as Captain Marvel. And I'm like, what? And then it just ends. And I'm like, I know we're getting the Marvels, but I didn't know the Marvels was going to be like a Freaky Friday body swap movie. Like, what are we doing there? Well, you know, I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, I was a little confused too, because like, is it Kamala in Bree's body, or did they just literally like Kamala went somewhere else and then Bree is here and they just like I don't think it's Kamala in Bree's body, right? I think they just literally switched places.
Maybe, but I have heard a lot of people theorizing that it's like a body swap because the way that she looks around the room. is as if it's just like, why am I in this body? Like, it's like she's still familiar with like her place, like where she is. Like, I don't know. That's just what I've seen a lot of people interpreting it, is like it seems like it's Kamala and it's like Brie now, and I'm like, wait, what does this mean? And if it's not that, and that's a misreading on the internet, then very possible.
Yeah, I want to say no. I'm not gonna hop on that. I don't think it's Kamala and Brie's body, because I think Brie is like looking around and like it's actually Carol that's in the room, and she's just there looking around at the stuff, and just like, imagine if you like were just you just magically popped in somewhere and then you saw just like posters of yourself just all over on the walls. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, oh fuck, like what the hell is this?
Right.
Which is what Brie kind of like, at least that's not what I got from it. It kind of just seemed like, you know, she's like, oh fuck, like I'm in some super fan's room or something, you know?
Well, it was so vague and quick. I don't think they really set up anything with that. It was actually like really confusing, and I was just kind of left scratching my head like, all right, sure.
Yeah.
I knew we were going to get Brie in the show. There was no way Captain Marvel didn't show up in Miss Marvel, a show about a young fan who loves Captain Marvel. I knew she was going to be there. I actually kind of wish we got her in a different capacity. I wish like there was like a scene between the two of them or something setting up that movie, because I'm just kind of left like confused, and I'm going to remain confused for another year until we get the Marvels, and I'm just like, ugh, this sucks.
I did want to see like the show starts out as like, you know, talking about Avengers Con or Avenger Con, and Kamala just being like an Avengers super fan. It would have been nice to like cap out that with like Kamala fangirling or just completely losing her shit, like actually meeting Carol.
Right. Yeah, that'd be cool. See her as a fan before we see them as like a team in the next movie.
Yeah. Well, they'll probably spend some time on that in the Marvels, I'm sure.
Well, in regards to Avengers Con, before we kind of move on, I thought that episode was a blast. I think Generation Y, I believe is what that episode is like really, really great. And might be why I love this show so much. Just that single episode. I just like, I give that show so much credit for that episode, because I just thought it was such a fun time.
Mm-hmm.
And like, as I had mentioned, like, does this show work entirely as a superhero show and as like an MCU property? Not entirely, but I do think as a family drama and just as like a coming of age story, I think it's really well done. And I think I got to give it the credit for just excelling in that field, even if it's not entirely great at some of the other stuff it does. You know?
Right. I agree. I think that's all I have on Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel, yeah, fair enough. What would you rate Miss Marvel?
I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I gave it a 3.5. I just feel like I mentioned, some of the superhero stuff and those two middle episodes, 4 and 5, just kind of really lost me briefly, and then it brought me back around in the finale. But yeah, I gave it a 3.5. I did like it quite a bit.
Yeah. Cool. But okay, so let's get into ranking phase for the MCU so far. So let's go from bottom to top. Let's go with you first. And like I said earlier, disclaimer, like we're ranking the projects, like all of them have like some level of enjoyment to me. I don't know about you, but I think all of these have like highlights and good moments, even though like I don't think all of these are completely garbage from start to finish, you know?
Right. And that's where I'm at with as well. Like, I don't think any of the stuff we're about to talk about is like bad or like garbage. Yeah. I just think some of it's a real mixed bag. Some of it has a lot of stuff I really don't like. And I think that I just am in this situation where I've never really been like, I don't like this with the MCU, you know? And I'm still not fully there. Like, I'm still not watching stuff and being like, this is outrageously bad. And I'm so done with this shit. Like, I'm never thinking that.
Yeah.
But I am at times like, just like, it's definitely lower quality than the stuff I've come to love from it previously. So yeah, I mean, talking about it, like there's like you mentioned, there's something I like about all of the stuff here. It's just like sometimes the ratio for stuff I like and stuff I didn't like isn't very good, you know?
Gotcha.
Okay, I'll start.
Let's get started.
My bottom of my list is Black Widow, which is like, I don't know, I have some friends who really like that movie, but I think it has a awful villain, just no reason to exist. It came out so late and so far after it should have. That story doesn't fit into phase 4. Like, we're talking about like a phase 3 movie or a phase 2 movie. I can't even remember, but it should not be in phase 4, and it should not have been the start of phase 4. I don't think it's an awful movie. I think it introduces Yelena, and she's a blast to watch. I think, you know, it's nice to have a cap on Natasha's character and spend some time with her before she's gone. But ultimately, I just felt like this movie really suffered from not needing to exist. And when you kill a character and then you want to go back in time, I'm like, I just feel like we should have done this earlier. You know, like, we should have spent this time with her a long time ago. She should have got her movie when everybody else got their movie.
Yeah.
And because she didn't, it leaves this movie feeling inconsequential and kind of useless, aside from the fact that it sets up a new character, you know?
Yeah, like that was like its singular purpose was to set up Yelena and I guess Val. Yeah, no, it felt strictly as a setup movie.
So set up, and I think it kind of represents all my issues with like spending time setting stuff up. Like we got the stuff with Val so long ago, and I still don't know what we're doing with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Black Widow for me got to be my last place. It's not awful, and there is some cool stuff, but just bad villain, waste Taskmaster, really bad CGI, and just came too late. So that's that for me on that one.
Gotcha. Bottom of my list is What If, the animated show. I don't think it's all bad. I think it just has like for one, it was just random short stories like every episode, like up until you get to like the season finale where they kind of rope in every episode together. I would say I didn't care for like most of the episodes. I probably really liked maybe 2 of them. I like the idea of like introducing us to the alternate versions. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like this is really not a required viewing
at all. It's like you could never watch this and it would be totally
fun. Like, and I thought you would have had to, because like episode 4 of What If is the Supreme Strange or whatever, the Evil Strange. And I don't even think that was the version of Doctor Strange that we got in Multiverse of Madness. Like,
which was a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, that one seemed like it was just a completely different variant, you know? And like, I mean, there's the Captain Carter episode, but do you really need to watch a Captain Carter episode to like understand who she is in Multiverse of Madness? I don't think so.
Captain Carter is just Steve Rogers swapped.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like, you know, the character of Peggy Carter. Okay, put her in Steve's shoes. Boom. You know the story, you know, like it's done.
So yeah, What If is at the bottom for me. Or well, that would be quote unquote, I guess that would be number 13. So what's number 12 for you?
Number 12 for me is What If.
Okay.
So I won't talk on it too much longer, but I will say I did enjoy weekly being able to just kind of tap in and tap out. I think it was really enjoyable for me to not have to worry about staying connected with the MCU at large weekly. You know, it was kind of just like little stories, and I could enjoy that world and then leave it alone. So I liked that a lot about it, but I do think, like you said, a lot of the episode were a mixed bag, and it's just pretty inconsequential and just mixed for me. Like I didn't care about much of it, and so I think on the one hand that works as a positive, that I didn't care and I could enjoy it whenever I wanted to. There's only a couple really solid episodes, and it's just a fine animated show. You know, there's nothing spectacular or overly memorable about it aside from, for me, the T'Challa as Star-Lord episode and the one we were just talking about.
Yeah, the Doctor Strange one. Number 12 for me is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This was a bummer because like when they had announced all these, like the MCU slate of TV shows, this was my most anticipated because Winter Soldier is like, first of all, Cap 2, Winter Soldier is one of my favorite. Yeah. It might be my favorite MCU movie, or if not number 3.
It's an incredible movie. Yeah, just incredible.
And
stuff.
The way that they sold, Falcon and Winter Soldier was that it was going to be like up to par with that, you know? So I was like, fuck yeah, like I can't wait like to see like, you know, great action choreography and just a great story, you know? And it ended up being none of that. Like
I'm with you.
And they even said like, oh, this is about to be the most violent MCU show ever. It's like this is gonna be turning a page for like violence in the MCU, and it was not all that bad. You know?
And now they're going back and like re-editing stuff to make it less violent. Like,
oh yeah, okay, that's sure. Right. Yeah, because if folks that listen don't know, but there was one episode where Bucky had like thrown a pole at someone that was attacking them and completely impaled him to like this shipping container. And now they re-edited it so that the pole just bounces off of them.
It hits him in the face and knocks him out, so he falls backwards against the shipping container. Instead of getting impaled to it, he now falls into it because it like hits him in the face. It's really stupid. It looks really dumb.
So I'm like, what are you guys doing here? But no, it's kind of weird. It's because like they also introduced like John Walker, which to me shouldn't feel like he ended up being like one of my more favorite characters from the show. But I feel like we shouldn't have felt that way. It's like what they tried like redeeming him at the end. It's like, no, let bad Captain America be bad Captain America.
I know. Yeah, the choice to redeem him at the very ending was like completely just destroys the point of the character altogether. Like it's like, oh, so John Walker's a hero now? I'm like, no, the whole point of him is that he's like, what could go wrong if you gave someone that power? Like it's so weird that they tried to make him a good guy.
Yeah.
Before my next one is Falcon Winter Soldier. So I can speak on it a little bit longer. At 11 for me, it's Falcon Winter Soldier. Yeah, I was so disappointed by the fact that this is so mid. Like the villains for it are really, Carly is a lame villain. Everybody, they trying so hard to sympathize her, and she's like blowing up random homes of people. And I'm like, you guys, you can't just be like, she's angry. I get what she's going through. I'm like, she's a literal terrorist. She's set off so many bombs already.
Yeah.
Like, on one hand, I get what they're going for about like people being angry and turning to that violence out of anger. I get it, but it's just Carly was a really underdeveloped character, and I can't even remember the group that she's part of, but they were all just really underdeveloped.
I remember it was the Flag Smashers.
Sure,
yeah,
sure, that's it, right? I just think it should have been better to have these two characters lead a show. Bucky takes a super intense backseat. Like this is pretty much a Falcon show, and that's fine.
Yeah,
but I like the Bucky character so much, and I just feel like it would have been cool to do a little bit more with him. I think this show should have been better, and I think it's weird that John Walker was one of the biggest takeaways for me as well. Like I just think when you have these two characters, and I'm walking away like, yeah, evil Captain America was kind of cool. Like I just think you kind of went wrong somewhere. You know? But it was fine. We got Zemo dancing in the club.
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely iconic moment, honestly.
Yeah. At least we got that.
And an extended cut of it. That was a pretty good time to be on the internet. I can't lie to you.
Yeah, what a time, the Zemo cut.
Yeah. But okay, so that's your number 11. So my number 11 is Eternals. And this is another one where I was like, we briefly talked about this earlier, like the MCU taking risks. And that's what I was like really looking forward to in this, was that like MCU's like turning a page. They're about to start making like quote unquote like prestige looking stuff. Mm-hmm. They're going to dive deeper into something else. And I was like ready for this to be like, oh, this is about to make waves at the Oscars,
Yeah, they really thought it would.
They really did. They like part of the marketing, like, and I just watched Nomadland, like that was fresh off Nomadland winning Best Picture at the Oscars. And then like they waited to promote Eternals until she had won Best Picture so that they can throw into the marketing of Eternals, like when Chloe Zhao. Yeah. And I was like, yes, that's great. I love that. But then like once we got it, I was like, Chloe Zhao, she cooked a little bit, like visually, like, I think she has like her visual stamp on it, but everything else was just so like somehow the fucking the deviants returned,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Just like they just so happen to be here. They have not done anything for hundreds of years, but now they are here. I'm like, oh, all
yeah,
right.
No, it's like the deviants sucked. I didn't get enough from each of the characters. But yeah, no, just a mess.
Our lists are going to start to change a little bit, but my next one is Eternals. My 10.
Your 10 is okay.
Eternals. Chloe Zhao made one of my favorite movies ever with Nomadland. I really, really love that movie, and I was so excited about the idea of seeing her make a Marvel movie. And I do think you're right. You can see at times her visual style over it. Her directorial flourishes are kind of there, but like not really. It's an MCU movie through and through. Like I like that they shot on location, and you can feel that at times. Other times, I don't think it feels like it showed.
Now that I think about it, it's like whenever they're on the beach, like maybe they just that was it, like the beginning of the movie,
like cliffs.
Yeah, that was all.
You're right. This is the rare case where so many of the shows, I'm like, I kind of wish they were movies. Like I hate that we got so much TV coming out. I feel like it's one of the bigger problems is like the exhaustion that you feel from all these shows of the MCU. I feel like Eternals definitely should have been a show. Like easily, you could have spent each episode focusing on a different member of the group, and then doing the gang coming back together in the last couple episodes and tackling the big threat. I think it would give you way more time to establish how long they've been here, how important they all are, how you could develop them on their own, and then you could have them come together. And I think a show for Eternals would have been so much better for the structuring of what they were trying to tell with that story.
With 6 episodes, though?
No, 8.
Yeah.
Like 8 or 10, not the 6. They need to stop. Yeah, they need. 6. It's often
it's time to ditch the 6 episodes.
Yeah, we need to, like, and I'm not saying I'm literally saying I'm so exhausted. Give me more is what I'm saying by saying that. But certain shows need to just be not afraid to do the 6, and you can do 6 for some of them. It works for a show like Hawkeye, but then other shows, I'm like, we could definitely have a couple more episodes here to flesh out what you're trying to build towards.
Yeah.
But anyways, with Eternals, it's just like you're a mess is probably the best way to put it. There's some really cool performances, some really great visuals. But again, going back to lame villains, like, oh my god, I don't remember anything about the Deviants aside from they are like aliens and they shriek. Okay, I just don't remember much about them, and I feel like, unfortunately, so much of this movie is forgettable where I didn't want it to be, and I think it got way too much hate, way too much undeserved hate. People are like, this is the worst thing in the MCU. I'm like, have you heard of a little thing called Thor: The Dark World? It is not Eternals. It's not the worst movie in the MCU, but it's definitely not great, and I wanted more for it.
Absolutely. So that was your number 10. My number 10 is Moon Knight. This is one I felt similar to it, like I did with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Again, they were saying how like violence in the MCU is about to change with this, and like looking back on it, the blackouts really made me upset.
The blackouts are so
the
annoying.
Blackouts really pissed me off, and it was enough to like for me to bring it down a few notches, because I understand, like, okay, maybe do the blackouts in like the first episode, which is what they did. And then they do like the whole thing with Jake Lockley, like they teased him all throughout. And then to do another blackout in the season finale of like what is supposedly like still a limited series at this point. Like there's nothing about season 2. I mean, they'll probably announce it soon, but like show us it, like this is season finale. Show us, you know. Yeah. Like, give us a big grand moment. And it was, yeah, it just wasn't that. That's not to say that I think there weren't like big moments in this. Like, you know, episode 5, completely heartbreaking. But then it feels like they almost undid everything that was in episode 5 and episode 6. You know, so I was like, wasn't big on it. But I love Oscar Isaac, so.
I feel like I'm so incapable of being realistic with my thoughts on Moon Knight because I love Oscar Isaac so much, and I feel like he just deserves the world, and it's just so hard for me because I'm like, I am mixed on a lot of stuff with Moon Knight, but the stuff that I really like. There's just, I don't know. I understand why you'd put it this low for sure.
Yeah, it felt like another setup show, like when we were talking. Yeah,
it kind of represents the biggest problems with all these shows, where it's like, well, Hawkeye also, we'll get into that, but. I hate that they spend 5 episodes teasing a thing, and then they reveal the thing, and then you get like 5 minutes with it, and then it's done.
Yeah.
And Moon Knight really suffers from that with Jake. They were like spent the whole season like, is there another personality? Wouldn't that be crazy? And then in like the final moments, they're like, yeah, there is, but like it doesn't do anything or work because I think people wanted to see Jake like 2 episodes before we seen Jake, and by the time you get him, everyone's like, all right, I don't even know if we're ever gonna see this character again. Yeah. Like. It doesn't matter.
Right. But okay, so where are we at? Number 9?
Yeah, number 9. Okay.
What's your number 9?
My number 9 is Thor: Love and Thunder. A movie that when I first walked out of the theater, I did the typical MCU thing where I had been like, I laughed a lot, I had a lot of fun with it, and I enjoyed it, and I think it was a 4 when I walked out of the theater. And then the more I sat with it and the more time went on, the more it kind of starts to deteriorate and shrivel away. And the more I see Taika doing interviews mocking his own movie's CGI and like mocking, like, it's weird. Some of the promotion and stuff that I've seen for this movie is just like, some of the marketing for this movie is just like, let's shit on it with them. And it's really weird to me that they're now doing that. And like, now we have Christian Bale and Taika beefing over like, give me the dark version give me the gore. No, but I think Thor: Love and Thunder has some really funny stuff and some stuff that really works. But I think they went a bit too far with turning Thor into a joke. Mm-hmm. At least for me. I think Ragnarok does it perfectly. It's really funny, and he's funny in a believable way. And in this, he's funny in like a sitcom-y way. And I seen a review for Thor: Love and Thunder that described it as a Saturday morning cartoon. And I think that's like a really, really good way to put it. I just wish it didn't have to be, because I think Gore is one of the best villains they've had in a while, and he's completely wasted. I mean, we do not see a lot of god butchering for someone who is called the God Butcher. And then he's just gone by the ending of the movie. And it's just like, all right, well, it was cool seeing you, Christian Bale. I hope you had fun, and I hope you got paid.
Yeah, hope you got the bag. You know, gotta respect a bag chase. Yeah.
I hate that my favorite part of the movie is someone who is really not in the movie enough and is not given too much to work with. Well, he is given stuff to work with. He gets to have some fun and really go crazy. but I just feel like he's so underdeveloped as a villain, and I really wish we got more, because that opening scene before you get the Marvel stuff where he kills that first god, I was like, oh, we're in for something, and really we weren't. It's just like Thor runs around the universe and tries to assemble a team to stop Gore, and then stops Gore, and just not a lot happens.
Tries to assemble a team and doesn't assemble a team.
Right. I felt like Natalie Portman was really underdeveloped in her return and kind of didn't know what movie she should be in. It was a little awkward to watch. And as somebody who really likes her as a performer, I was just like, I feel like you have multiple directions and you don't really know which way to go with it. And I don't know. I just feel like I'm a fan of Taika's work, but this is definitely my least favorite Taika Waititi movie so far. I think it kind of is the first thing to represent his flaws as a filmmaker, which is his inability to like let some things be a little serious and to brew. Goes back to the whole MCU issue of it's so funny. It's always so funny. And I feel like Thor is peak. Like, why is it so funny all the time? And I'm okay with laughing at an MCU movie, but I just feel like this movie is just a little intense in its vision, in its creative vision. And I don't know if it was one that fully worked for me.
Yeah, I agree. And
the CGI is bad. There's some really cool eye candy in this movie that looks great, but there's also some like of the worst CGI I've seen in the MCU ever in this movie. Screaming Goats did have me cracking up, though. Maybe because I'm a child and they were super stupid. Yeah. Halfway through the movie, I thought we were going to abandon that joke, and we did not. And I was like, I think I was more impressed by the movie's refusal to let that joke go than the joke itself. And I just found that to be entertaining.
Yeah, the goats, honestly, I was over it after the first time they used them. Like, once they got onto the Guardian ship, I was like, okay, can we not do this anymore after this?
Let's go. Yeah. It did get annoying for me, but then when they land on the planet that Gore's on and they just let out a little scream, I was like, okay, we're still doing this. No, yeah, I just feel like, obviously, I didn't hate this, and there's a lot of stuff that I did have fun with here, but we can't let that shot of that kid's face floating. We can't let that exist. It's like that's such bad CGI, and it bothered me. I'm like, this is a $200 million movie. We can't let this look like this.
That's hilarious. But okay, my number 9 is Black Widow, and I actually had I struggled a little bit. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with it at number 9, but we're leaving it at number 9. Yeah, it's staying here. Black Widow, like we'd already talked about it quite a bit, but like we said, it's a setup movie for Yelena, and I like Yelena. I like, just being a Florence Pugh fan. I think she's one of the cooler like additions to the MCU, I feel. And I mean, David Harbour just having the time of his life, just being this really dumb. Like, I thought he was like a little funny in this. And here, like, people love to talk about the CGI moment where Yelena blows up that spinning helicarrier or whatever, which is, oh man, it's insane.
Looks really bad.
It's awful. But no, I think like wasted Taskmaster. Man, this really should be lower, but we're leaving it at 9.
Well, to your point, I feel like maybe I put it a bit too low to put it at the very bottom. I realize I might like Black Widow more than I like What If or Falcon and Winter Soldier, but it is how it is. We've ranked it.
Yeah, it stays. I think I have it higher because of my number 8. I'll talk about that once we get to it. But what's your number? Your number 8, right? That's where you're at, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
8. My number 8 is Moon Knight.
Okay.
Which is like, for all the things that you said, I hear and I completely agree. But then I say Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
Like I'm just.
It's like, okay, I hear you, but Oscar Isaac.
Right. Exactly. I think that performance from him is one of the more impressive things I've seen in the MCU in a while. And I really love the show's desire to tap into the mental health side of things and to really focus on this disorder that he's got. And I just think it's so well executed in that regard. And it kind of goes back to my whole thing with Miss Marvel is like, it doesn't fully succeed at a superhero show. I think the Moon Knight suit is fine. I think we don't see Moon Knight a lot at all throughout the show. But I just think that Oscar Isaac's performance as in the lead of that show is just so good. And I think about episode 5 a lot. And I'm like, that's probably one of my favorite things I've seen in the MCU in a while. Just because of the pure commitment to the emotional side of it. And then it undoes a lot of what I liked about the show in the finale. But definitely flawed, definitely mixed. But I love Oscar Isaac, and I really hope we see him more. I like this character a lot. Like, Moon Knight is a really interesting character to me. And I definitely want to see more from it. I do think that this show does kind of have the Disney Plus problem of cramming everything into 6 episodes and trying to tease something that we end up getting in the final moments and then just get left feeling like, whatever. But I do want more for this character, and I'm really excited to hopefully see Oscar Isaac in the MCU more going forward.
Yeah, it's not like Disney can't afford to make more episodes, you know? But yeah, to your point about the suit, there were times when the Moon Knight suit looked like how the Moon Knight suit looks on Fortnite, if that makes sense.
Right. Like super cartoony.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
fake.
You guys, come on.
It's like Oscar Isaac and IP. He just keeps getting done dirty. Like he finally gets a good character to work with in Moon Knight, and he's like just the worst CGI in the MCU. I'm like, why'd you have to do him like that?
Why'd you guys do my boy like this?
I don't. Yeah, look at how they've massacred me. I keep bringing up CGI, and I definitely don't do that to be like this old man yelling at clouds. And it's not like obviously it's distracting when it looks bad, and I get taken out of it. But I think the reason it bothers me so much is just what I mentioned earlier about like the fact that movies from 10 years ago in the MCU look better than stuff we're getting now is just a sign of rushing and like quantity over quality. And that's not what I want for the MCU. I want them to still be able to tap into that quality. And I know that they've got the money for it. So it can get bothersome. And I feel like with Moon Knight, they have all the makings of that quality, and they just kind of squander it at times by not putting maybe enough care into some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But Oscar Isaac, just
gotta love the guy.
Worth it for him.
Big fan. Okay, so like I mentioned before, my number 9 is Black Widow. So at number 8, I have Hawkeye. Now, Hawkeye is something that I enjoyed quite a bit, mostly because I think Haley Steinfeld is another great addition to the MCU. She really sells Kate Bishop. Like, she does a fantastic job at it. Like, the chemistry between Haley Steinfeld and Florence Pugh, and they're like, you know, bickering or whatever. Like, I'd like a show just about them. That'd be pretty awesome.
Oh yeah,
like they're quite a duo.
Give me the Yelena and Kate Bishop like show where they open like a mac and cheese restaurant. Would love it. Just them hanging out. You know, I just like spending time with those two characters. I don't care if they're doing anything superhero related. I'm like, yeah, just like it's fine. They're just hanging out.
Right. So Hawkeye. I mean, I honestly don't have anything too negative to say about it other than like the 6-episode thing, and they kind of did Kingpin dirty. Like, what a downgrade for Kingpin, honestly.
Right. Yeah. Well, while you're on it, yeah, my 7 is also Hawkeye. So
okay.
I feel like this show, I love the Christmas vibes.
Yeah.
I really do. I think I'll revisit the show in December, and it'll continue to remain fun. I like that the show is so breezy and just moves the way it does. I actually don't have a lot of complaints about Hawkeye. I feel like it's just a really fun time, and it's like a little airless at times, you know. And when I say that, I just mean like it doesn't really have a lot on its mind. It's just hanging out with these characters, and I think that's okay.
Like they're just getting in some trouble, you know.
Yeah, just getting up to some trouble in New York at Christmas.
Yeah,
I like that stuff, and I think it's a really, really solid time. I love having Yelena in here, and Kate Bishop is just fantastic. Haley Steinfeld is super talented. I like her music, even though I don't really like corporate pop music. I just, whenever Haley Steinfeld does it, I'm like, yeah, it's good now. I like it.
Wow, I've corporate pop music is like such a perfect way to put it. Like,
oh yeah, it's like I don't even know if that's Haley Steinfeld behind the mic.
Exactly,
an AI.
Exactly. Like some of these songs,
she's just got a good voice.
Some of these songs you'll hear on the radio, it's like the electronic, like, well, we're such a sidebar, and I'll leave it soon, but like, like you don't know who's behind the mic, and then you don't find out till like you actually like you'd have to look it up. Like a lot of the songs,
it's like, oh, that was Addison Rae.
I
had no idea.
It's like, oh, this is Haley Steinfeld singing. No way, she does sound great.
Yeah. But I love her as a character here, and I just think, yeah, I'm not even really going to try and criticize Hawkeye. I don't think there's anything that really bothered me about it, aside from, like you said, I think, and what I mentioned earlier when I said I'll get to this issue when I get to Hawkeye, is I hate the MCU issue where they tease something for 5 episodes and then they give it to you and then it's gone. And that's what they do with Kingpin. They spend the whole thing being like the big man, the dude in New York, the scary guy. Yeah. And then they just like reveal him, and then it's like, yeah, I knew it was Kingpin, obviously. Like, you guys were being so vague with the wording. Of course it was going to be Kingpin. So I think it's kind of weird how they do that character, and how they like tease it so long rather than just letting him be the villain of the show. I think that would have been a much better version of it. But that's my only real issue with it. I think Hawkeye is really solid. So that's my number 7.
Yeah. My number 7 is Miss Marvel. Like I said earlier, we'd already talked quite a bit about it. It's mostly like, I think it's a solid show, but it's mostly down here because I wasn't completely engaged with it. Can't lie to you, like there weren't a lot of times where it fully had my attention. like the family dynamic bits, those were like when I was like glued to the screen. But I think it's like with what you said, like once it starts getting into like the superhero stuff, it's like, okay, I'm not that crazy about it because it doesn't look that cool.
And like I should probably judge my superhero show for not succeeding at being a superhero show, but I don't know why I don't. I just think that the other stuff here is so nice, so I just am biased towards it, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. The whole superhero globe-trotting epic adventure of Miss Marvel is not very good.
Right. So we had already talked about it, so I'm not going to stick too long on it. So what is your number 6?
My number 6 is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Okay.
For me, I feel like I have so many issues with the script here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the rare case where I walk away from it being like, I actually think the directing was fantastic. Most of the CGI looked really, really solid. Like I'm a huge Sam Raimi fan. Always have been. Love the Evil Dead movies. And so like just to have a Marvel movie that was so clearly him and so chaotic and horror filled, obviously not like a horror movie or a scary movie by any regards, but just the imagery and the tone. I really loved that element of it. But the script is so messy and sloppy and just was probably my biggest issue with the movie. The more I sat with the script and all the writing choices, I was like, it really bothers me. But I think the directing and the tone and energy of this movie is really fun. So that's where I'm at with that.
The script and the writing is interesting because I agree. And because Michael Waldron was the writer on this, and I thought he did great with Loki. Right. And so, yeah, I don't know what happened. Like, I thought I think it's like the multiverse bits that I thought were going to be really solid because Michael Waldron had done a good job on doing the multiverse bits with Loki, and I guess just didn't translate very well. I don't know.
He was a writer for Rick and Morty, right?
I think he just did like maybe a couple episodes.
I was going to make a comparison that with Loki, you couldn't feel the Rick and Morty writing. And I feel like with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, it actually felt like a Rick and Morty episode at multiple times. And so that's a weird observation.
No, that's solid.
Yeah, no, the last thing I want to say about it is like Michael Waldron, the bones for the script here are solid. There is stuff I really like. Some writing decisions I do like, but I just feel like we can't let them get away with that ice cream song.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
like
no.
We can't let that be a thing that we can write into scripts.
Yeah, pretty awful.
No, I'm just playing. But I thought it was solid. It was, a good time.
I think it was Danny Elfman that actually wrote that song.
Oh, man. I did not just diss Danny Elfman. He's
some of your favorite artists have misses. It's all good.
Yeah, we all mess up sometimes.
So my number 6 is Thor: Love and Thunder. I just recently potted about it like a couple episodes ago, so I won't spend too much time on this. It's how I felt kind of with Miss Marvel. It's just bright fun, a little too much humor for my taste. Gore unused, criminally unused. Natalie Portman here's the thing about Natalie Portman. I am a big fan, but her in this, like when she tries to do like funny stuff, is not good. Like she's not good as like trying to do comedy. It's not her thing.
That hand grenade joke is like awful.
Yeah.
Like really, really bad. And just like sucked the air out of my theater. Like no one laughed. And it was just like we were just waiting for them to stop nodding their heads. Like that was a moment that we should have laughed.
Yeah. And her like final, oh God, it makes me cringe thinking about it. Her whole bit at the end where she's fighting with Gore is just, I just thought was so corny. Like it was just so
eat my hammer.
Yeah. I'm like, get the fuck out of here, dude.
Don't say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I wish this moment was just grand and epic and just her kicking ass. Like, but they had to throw in the thing to like shut up all the guys that are like, oh, it's the MCU now. Like that, like I felt like that was the only purpose for this was to just like kind of put those guys on blast. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But this is so corny.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's super corny. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that was like my big issue. I was just like, oh, so much of it is corny. Like, I did not get on board with what Russell Crowe is doing. I was just like, I'm done. I'm immediately, I'm allergic to this performance.
I'm allergic to it. I don't know. Like, what's with the accent? Like, why does Zeus have to be funny? Like,
it's like, yeah, I have no idea what he was going for with that accent. He was like, I'm a bit of Greek, a bit of Italian. I'm like, sure. Weird stuff.
Yeah. Anyways, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Miss Marvel, and we've already talked about it, so I won't linger on it much longer. It's just so super sweet and just super wholesome. I just love the vibes. I think it was the first time where I was just kind of looking forward to tapping in every Wednesday. I wasn't exhausted by the idea of it for the first time in a while. I was just like, this is just a fun show. I'm just enjoying myself with it. I really like the familial dynamics of it all. Again, as I've said, should probably have this superhero show that's not a good superhero show lower on my list. I just think I really love Iman Vellani, and I'm really excited about the idea of seeing more. And honestly, like, I don't really like Captain Marvel, like the movie Captain Marvel, kind of even really the character. I'm excited to see how they like make her grow over time, but they haven't really done much with her, and that first movie just wasn't for me. So the fact that I like this show so much is kind of a shocker to me, because it's literally about a young girl who loves Captain Marvel, and I have no connection with that character. So I was just shocked at how much I enjoyed it, how much fun I had with it, and just the wholesome, sweet high school vibes. I like seeing a young superhero who's focused on like her relationship with her parents and like falling in love. It's just nice, and I had a fun time with it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like there are bits of her like wanting to go out and do something, and your parents telling you no is like, you know, everyone can relate to that. It's like struggling to like go to like oh, I want to go to the concert, I want to go to the party or whatever, and your parents are like, no, you can't. And it's just like, oh, I've been there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And I just feel like, especially with the superhero genre, it's so cool to see different cultures and perspectives and representation. It's like, that's something I love to see in film and TV anyways, but when you mix it in with this fun, epic world that is so familiar to everyone and accessible to everyone, and you tell these stories of like culture and family and history, I think that's really interesting. And so that was a reason that I think I navigated to the show so much.
Gotcha.
What about you? What's your number 5?
Yeah, number 5 for me is Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange. Like we said, briefly talked about it already, but I really like how it feels different from every other Marvel movie. Like, I love the horror aspects of it. Yeah, I'll agree with you. The script and the writing is a little much, but the cameos kind of whatever.
Yeah, they're eh.
Yeah, but
I just wish we got more multiverse in our Multiverse of Madness.
Right,
you know?
More maddening multiverse stuff would have been great. I definitely like this. Kind of feels like almost like some points feel like a risk-taking movie as far as like the horror bits.
I was talking to John Carter. Well, actually, I wasn't talking with him, but I seen on his story from the Cast of Color. Mm-hmm. He just said that it's one of the first Marvel movies that his daughter's been like pulling on her shirt, like, let's and I think that's, you know, on one hand, it sucks that he maybe had to leave that movie or his daughter didn't want to see it, but on the other hand, I like that there are children asking to leave Marvel movies now. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's like, it means they're taking some risks and going to some places that aren't so defined to like the formula and the comfortability of stuff they've previously done. I like having some horror in Marvel. I think that's kind of fun. It sucks for all the parents who want to take their kids and their kids who are now scared of it.
Right.
But on the other hand, I like that imagery in my Marvel movies.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And Wanda's great in this, you know? So.
Yeah, she is. She's menacing.
Yeah. What's your number 4?
Number 4 is WandaVision.
Okay. I'll say this real quick. WandaVision is also my number 4.
Yeah, we can just collectively chat about it. I feel like this show was the peak of like the MCU TV moment. It was where like it was all potential. It was all exciting. All we saw was promise and future, and we weren't exhausted yet. And when I look back at the show, there's a couple episodes that I think are weaker. Mm-hmm. But I love having the longer, I guess with the runtime of the episodes and like the fact that there's 9 episodes, it probably equals out to like the same length of show as like all the other ones. But it feels like there's more, you know, like having those extra episodes and spending more time in that world weekly just made it feel like a longer thing. And I think that this is a really beautiful love story told in the MCU. I think it's a really nice story about, or like not nice, obviously, but a good story about grief and heartache and losing someone. And I think using like the sitcom premise was definitely a creative spin. I think it's easy to be like, Eternals was a risk for them, but it's just a Marvel movie that's a little more serious. I think doing a full-on sitcom for like 6 episodes is actually a risk, especially as your first show after like the biggest movie ever. Mm-hmm. So I thought that this was a creative risk that did pay off and that I thought was really entertaining and really fun constantly. And I loved WandaVision.
Yeah, WandaVision was it was one of those shows that kind of gripped everybody, and like collectively just being online to like watch like or read WandaVision tweets was incredible, just because like everyone was like theorizing every week. Like that's one of my favorite things.
Mephisto.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, let's not go there.
Yeah, let's not talk about Mephisto.
But yeah, no, like just like being in the conversation with everybody for WandaVision was really great. Just what a blast of like what was it, like 6 weeks? Like how many episodes was this again? They dropped the first two.
Yeah, and then there was 9 episodes, so 7 weeks after.
Gotcha.
That.
Yeah. So just fun time. Like you said, like
well written too, just well told. The story is just well done. Like everything they were trying to do, they just execute on it really well.
Yeah. And some CGI bits do seem wonky, like especially in the season finale, but other than that, like everything else is fun. This actually felt like a required viewing before seeing Doctor Strange.
Yeah, a lot of the shows you can argue how important they are, but I think it's pretty immediately clear that if you're going to see the new Doctor Strange movie, you should probably see WandaVision as well.
Yeah. And it just came at I feel like it came at like a perfect time, because what is this, like 2021? And everyone had just like spent a lot of time just inside, just like mentally not being all there, you know? And so a show like talking about grief, like I think everybody kind of just leveled with it in a way of like loss and all that stuff. So it was
totally.
It was good.
Like you said, I love the moment. It was like something that everybody was talking about. It was just a huge thing.
Yeah.
So that was one of the best parts about it.
Yeah. So yeah, WandaVision, that's number 4 for both of us. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Shang-Chi.
It's also my number 3. It's also my number 3.
Okay.
We might have the same.
The rest of our list is
yeah, I think it is.
Okay. So we'll just skim through it and I guess we can just talk about them quickly and wrap it up. Yeah, Shang-Chi, I was actually almost put as second. I think that this is everything I want from like an MCU origin story at this point. And in regards to like a lot of the issues I have with like the MCU and the lack of through line and clear vision for what we're doing, I mean, Shang-Chi shares those same problems, but I think it sets up this hero that I'm like so thrilled to see more of. And it's super badass. I think the action and choreography rivals Winter Soldier. It's probably the closest Marvel's ever come. You could make an argument for. There's some like just stunning action sequences and fighting sequences, and I love the way that it pulls on old Jackie Chan movies and all that stuff too, just to like really match that energy. And I think that so much of Shang-Chi is just like really solid. Tony Leung as the villain is sympathetic, understandable, despite the fact that he's very cold and very evil and cruel. And I thought that he killed that performance, and it just really loved Shang-Chi.
Yeah. I wish we would get more of Wenwu in the future, because I think he is one of the... I would put him as second best villain for now in Phase 4. Well, yeah, in Phase 4 and just in general, he's a great villain. But yeah, Shang-Chi is fucking awesome. And Shang-Chi and Thor Love and Thunder are like similar to me in a way where neither of them deal with the big picture, like the multiverse or anything like that. And it doesn't really like, besides like the post-credit scene, like with the 10 rings setting off that beacon or whatever, which I don't know what that's about. But if you,
I guess we'll figure out sometime in the next decade.
Like you just toss all that out, and it's just a great like solo movie, you know? Like there are barely any MCU connections. Like I mean, you have Wong there, then you have the Abomination,
Trevor Slattery.
Yeah. Oh, and Trevor Slattery. Okay, there are some MCU things here, but like,
but you'd be fine if you didn't know.
Yeah, because they explain it pretty well. But still, like without all that stuff, it's just a great, like you said, it's a top tier origin story and great character. I love Shang-Chi, and action choreo is great.
Yeah, I mean, we did a whole pod on it, so if you, I have so much more thoughts on it that I've said in the past on that movie, but just one of my actual top tier Marvel movies, just in general. Like I think it might be in my top 5. I'm not sure. It might be in top 10, maybe not 5. Yeah. But I really love that movie.
Yeah. So what's number 2?
My number 2, yeah, it's definitely, we share this one for sure, is Loki.
Yep, Loki's number 2.
Just the most well executed show. Period. Yeah. It does. Clearly sets up more. It doesn't leave you scratching your head or frustrated at any point due to the things it's asking and trying to tease. Yeah, man, Loki, I mean, I have so much thoughts on it, but I also, it's one of those ones where I just get overwhelmed trying to speak on it, because I'm like, I love the talky nature of this show. I'm a huge fan of like talky stuff, when people just sit down and have conversations, and a lot of the stuff with Mobius and with Loki just talking for the first couple episodes was so fascinating to me. I was like, damn, this is like clearly a product of some COVID restrictions, having to just sit down in a room and just like chat with the characters instead. but it allowed you to really get to know Loki. And like, I felt like it was so fascinating to take that approach to this character. And also the final episode is literally like a conversation for the entire episode. And it rules. It's like one of the best episodes of television they've ever put out. So yeah, Loki just slaps.
Loki's great. And like you said, Loki and Mobius, like Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston, just have great chemistry in the show. And I love it's like it kind of goes through like Loki's like greatest hits, you know?
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. Like I think like the way it ends with He Who Remains, or Kang, if you will. Like we've been talking a lot about the post-credit scenes here, and with this one, I wasn't like, okay, I guess we'll see him in the future, you know? Like I'm like, it's like worth the wait. I know it's coming soon, but like Kang, I feel like is a big deal enough to where it's like, yeah, like I know, like, you know that he's the next big bad, and this is like, I wish we were getting more Kang post-credit scenes, I guess is what I'm trying to get at here. Kind of like how Thanos absolutely got like 3 different post-credit scenes throughout phases 1 through 3.
Jonathan Majors' performance was so chilling too. Just the final line where he's like, "See you soon." I was like, that moment plays in my head all the time. Like, that's so exciting, and it is one of those rare moments with the MCU right now where we're playing the long game with it, but I'm fine with it. I do get annoyed with some of the things they're setting up and not knowing when we'll see it. But with the Kang stuff, I know we're going to see it, and I know it's going to be a really good payoff. Like, it's exciting, and the idea of seeing some alternate super evil version of him now is really just going to drive home. It's like, damn, He Who Remains was fine. You definitely should have just left him alone. He was a cool guy, and now you've caused the biggest problem ever. Like, I just think it's
broke open the multiverse. It's like, I think that's what makes the show so exciting too, is that this was like the first tease and first look at the future of the MCU. It's like, look at this big ass problem. You know?
Right. And I wish they were more clear with like that Loki was the moment, because they've done this thing where like, was it WandaVision or Spider-Man, or like what broke open the multiverse? And I'm like, it was Loki, I think. I just don't know why you guys couldn't commit to the idea that it was definitely the events of Loki that did this.
I do wish, because I feel like Loki gave us more terms that we should know. Like, oh, like this is a variant, there's like separate timelines or whatever, like a branch or something. I wish they were using the word variant more.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, throwing in the term variant in regards to the Reed Richards we saw in Doctor Strange might have been a good idea, but they just didn't, so it's fine.
Yeah,
I can't remember the actress who played Sylvie. I just think the chemistry between everybody in the show is so good, and I think it does succeed the best at being a show and being like, there is going to be more of this. It's not a limited run. I'm so sick of them being like 6 episodes and then you'll never see them again. I love that Loki was just off the bat like, oh, there's a cliffhanger and we're going to get more for sure.
Yeah.
I just, it's a full-on, fully functioning show, not a mini series.
Yeah, and that Loki is the only one to actually confirm this. Like, one of the post-credit scenes is saying like Loki will return in season 2. Like, you know that they're making season 2, and there's already like leaked set photos that you can find online. But Sophia DiMartino, that's who Sylvie is. Yeah, no, Loki, just banger show. Honestly, like, not only like top tier in Phase 4, but also it's top tier in the MCU for me, because it's I feel like it's just really important for the rest of the like for the future of the MCU,
and just takes a character that people love so much and just puts you into a really interesting dynamic with them. You know? All right, the number 1 is the obvious one, and I don't need a lot of big words to explain it. I can explain it pretty simply as 3 Spider-Men at once. Number 1 is Spider-Man No Way Home. Yeah.
It was obvious. Fucking Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, Tom Holland. It is something that you feel like it's almost hard to believe that we saw this on screen. And I want, like, and like I mentioned earlier, I wish like they said like, oh, he's like a variant of me from another universe. That's like, either way, it's still so crazy. Like, I keep rethinking in my head the scene of them swinging together. It's just so iconic.
It's still crazy that this movie exists, and it's like just the fact that it is as good as it is too. Like, it's like they really pulled it off. They did the magic trick. They executed it so flawlessly, and it's now, I feel like when we look back at it, it's easy to be like, that might have been a bit of a gimmick, but it really wasn't. Like, in theater, seeing that was one of the biggest, best moments ever in a theater for so many people. And the hype up to it, everything around that movie was just like one of the biggest moments in the MCU ever. I don't think they can ever get to the highs they reached with that movie ever again. Like, it's just, I love what it did to retroactively be like I talked openly on the Cast of Color about how I feel like Tom Holland's Spider-Man he never really developed. He was this weird half Spider-Man, half Iron Man, like hybrid, where it didn't really know what they wanted to do with him. And then I realized that it was all one origin story. All 3 movies were leading up to this movie. And that was the origin story. It wasn't a 1-movie origin story. It was a 3-movie origin story. And I think that it was such a clever reveal, and the way they did it was fucking perfect. It's just a masterpiece for me, you know?
Yeah. And I'll say this too is, like, I feel some people critique this one for not having story, but the story here is like, if you want to like take out all the like the multiversal stuff, it's kind of like the anxieties of like graduating high school, worrying that people will forget about you or whatever, like, or you'll lose like your best friends or something like that, which unfortunately happens at the end of the movie, like on like a multiversal scale. Like, he had to like wish away that everyone forgot about him, and it's sad.
Yeah, the highlight.
Magic trick is a great way to put it. Like,
yeah, I can't lie. I got that from, I think it was Charles Holmes who referred to it that way on the Ringerverse.
Right.
So magic trick is a great way to put it. You know, they did the trick. It was executed perfectly, and it's so easy to look back and be like, oh, that was just a random act that they did, that just like they put the blindfold over us and tricked us. But it really wasn't. It was like a full moment. And it's just such a special moment for people who love Spider-Man in particular, you know?
Right.
So that's my number 1. And I think that's the best thing they've done in Phase 4, and might remain the best thing they do for a while.
Yeah. What is it? Like, there's 2 more things coming out this year, and I don't know if that's the end of Phase 4. Like, because usually, so Phases 1 through 3, the way that I've seen it is, and I'm pretty sure Feige confirmed this, was like each phase, if you want to think of it, long drawn out season of TV, where the season finale was an Avengers movie.
Right.
And that's how it was for Phase 1. Phase 2 is a little different. Like, they had Avengers Age of Ultron at the very end, but I think another movie might have came out after that. But then you had Phase 3, which, you know, ultimately led to Infinity War and Endgame. And I think maybe the last movie in that phase might have been Far From Home. The next 2 projects are She-Hulk, and oh man, who knows what's going to go on with that. That's coming in August.
Really, no expectations for that one.
And then we have Black Panther 2 coming in November.
Need the trailer. I have no idea what's going on with that movie. I'm getting concerned about it.
Yeah, I think we're going to get our first look in a couple weeks here, because Comic-Con is coming up, and Marvel Studios is going to have a panel there. So that I'm really excited for, because I hope they drop like some big banger news to like
some clear through line of where we're headed.
Yeah, so we'll see about that. But yeah, who knows when Phase 4 ends, but they have a lot out there.
More content. It never ends. We'll have to keep talking about whatever's coming out. I know we have Black Panther and Guardians and all that stuff sometime in the next year. I know Black Panther's this year, and then Guardians is early next year, right?
I think it's like that, yeah. We'll see. But yeah, that is our rankings.
The last thing I'll say is, like, I'm definitely not a hater. I just talked about it for an hour and a half on a Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, like, I clearly enjoy this stuff and care about it. I care about talking about it. I feel like there's been a quality issue where they're putting out so much and it's not as good. And I just need to be honest and transparent about that, because I obviously love this stuff. I just want it to be as good as it's always been.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to think that they can just put out mediocre stuff because we're going to accept it anyways. And so that's the last thing I'll say. That's it for me.
Even though that is kind of what's going on right now, it's like
it definitely
like they're just throwing it out there, and like they know we're gonna like put our butts in the seats in the theaters, and like we openly admit it too. It's like it's probably gonna suck, but I'm gonna watch it anyway. You know, that's what I always say. You know, yeah, I think that's what a lot of people still say. But yeah, so I mean, it sucks.
Yeah. They know they can do that now. That's the problem. So they'll keep doing it.
But yeah, Phase 4, I'm not crazy about it. I mean, I was crazy about it at first, but now I'm just like, okay, no expectations.
It's just such a mixed bag. Yeah, it's just such a mixed bag, and it's just a mess. It's just a real mess. And I don't think I've felt that towards any of the other phases, but it's just a real mess. And I just hope they can figure it out.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, cool. Hayden, thanks for coming on.
Always, man. Great to be
here. Yeah,
of
course. We'll do it again soon. But that's going to do it for episode 90, folks. Episode 91, like me and Aaron, we were back together for it, revisited The Mandalorian, talked about the first 2 seasons and our top 3 episodes. So stay tuned for that. But until the next pod, I mean, follow us on socials, follow us on YouTube and TikTok. All the links are in the description of this episode. But until then, catch you next time. So peace.